Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you everyone for coming to this lecture series given by Manonatha Das Prabhu. We can go ahead and give it to you, Maharaj. Thank you. Please accept my obeisances.
Hare Krishna. Would you enable me to record on my computer?
Yes.
Not to record it. Okay. Here we are. Am I recording it in my computer?
Yes, yeah. It's recording on my end, and I think you have the ability as well, because you're a co-host.
Okay. Right. Okay, Hare Krishna, and thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Today we are going to study the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, which is quite interesting because it has introduced a new main a topic. But first of all, let me take a few minutes to offer my humble obeisances to our deities and spiritual masters. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Mena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Pitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitancha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and to the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother, Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunatha Dasa, Raghunatha Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadada, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani, Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. Oh, my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distress and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavana. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadada, Srivasa, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, chapter 7. So we are advancing quite quickly, and chapter 18, chapter 7. So we are fast arriving to the half of Bhagavad-Gita. Chapter 7 is has 30 verses, so it's not very big. It's not the smallest. It's not the biggest. And but the chapter 7 is particularly important. Now I'm going to explain why. There are no secondary topics in Bhagavad Gita, meaning no topics that are less important than others. They're all important, because if they were not, then they would not be in the Bhagavad Gita. However, there are some topics that for us, the way we think, our way of reasoning, are more important than others. So we have until now discussed two very, very important topics for us. Again, we had a lot of topics until now, but two, they were the main. The first one is called Jiva Tattva. Jiva Tattva means the spirit soul. We are spirit soul. And who are we is not a secondary topic. It's actually quite important, because it's the base of everything we do. We wake up in the morning and we act according to what we think. If we are a mother, we start caring about our sons. If we are a dog, we start barking. If we are a bird, if we think to be a bird, and we fly. So everything we do depends on the identification, who we think we are. So it's very important to establish this very, very important basic principle. And we did in the second chapter, where more than a half of the second chapter deals with this topic, which we call Jiva Tattva. Tattva means basically the philosophy, or literally Tattva means truth, but everything concerning Jiva. So Jiva Tattva, everything concerning Jiva. And Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter has given us pearls of wisdom about who we are. And I tell you, if we have realized at least just a little bit of this Jiva Tattva, then our life cannot but have changed completely. Because what's the point of continuing to think that we are Americans, women, men, this and that, if we know that we are not? We are not men, we are not women, we are not Americans, we are not a European, we are spirit soul. So something must have begun to change in the way we see our life. And this is the first very, very important topic. Of course, for the Vedic sage, this truth is not very important, because they know this from the birth. Okay, but for us, this is very, very important. It's actually a bomb, it's a revolution. It changed completely our life. The first time that I heard this concept, you are not this body, you are spirit soul. It's like, wow, my life changed from that day, because I saw another life in front of me. The second concept that we have learned, which began from the second part of the second chapter and for the whole third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, if we are not the body, we are soul, then what we had to do? Karma. In Sanskrit, karma is a translation of to do. It comes from the verbal root, kri, and from kri becomes karma. Okay, there are a lot of grammatical rules, especially some to build. Every word in Sanskrit begins from a verbal root, and then karma is not a verb, it's a substantive. In English, a substantive is a word. It changes. I'm not going to do a Sanskrit lesson today, but karma comes from kriya, which means to do, so action. If we are spirit soul, then our action is to change. And Bhagavad-Gita, Sri Krishna speaks to Arjuna and teach him what to do. Depending from the stage of the spiritual advancement, he has to do something. And if he is another stage of spiritual advancement, he has to do something else. So karma yoga has been an extremely important lesson that we spoke a lot, hours about this. And we have continued. Even the fourth chapter, there is some karma yoga concept to discuss. And we have discussed. Last week, we discussed about yoga in general, what the word yoga means. Yoga is not what people think it is. And yoga means to go to a gym, pay some money, and do some physical recreation. This is not yoga. Yoga is a spiritual thing. And the physical exercises are to facilitate spiritual life. Just like if you were to chant Hare Krishna in the morning, but you have a pain here and a pain there, then you are distracted in meditation. So first of all, Patanjali, which is the sage who promulgated yoga, the science of yoga, begins his book by describing different positions, different rules for breathing, etc., to facilitate meditation. But the physical postures, etc., are not the end. It's the beginning. It's just an instrument, and this has to be understood. And we spoke about last week. We spoke about yoga, different types of yoga. We have spoken about Ashtanga yoga. Of course, I didn't do an entire lesson or lecture about Ashtanga yoga, which is a very long, it's a science. It would take days to explain the Ashtanga yoga, but we have concluded that the real yoga is the system who connects with the absolute. That's yoga. Yoga comes from the Sanskrit root, yuj, which means to connect. From yuj becomes yoga. Yoga is a science that connects you with what? Physical well-being. No, we are not this body, so what's the point? So yoga connects you with the transcendental Lord. This is yoga. So today we are going to introduce among the many important lessons, the third really main lessons. We spoke who we are, what we have to do, and now God. Today we're going to speak about God. I don't like very much this word. We have so many words in Sanskrit, we don't need to use the Western word. But just to understand each other, today we're going to talk who God is. So first of all, Srila Prabhupada uses a very, very particular expression to refer to the Absolute, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What does it mean? What does it mean? You know, I have been years trying to understand what it means, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So first of all, Godhead is a word which was invented by Shiva Bhaktisiddhanta, referring to the main God, Godhead, the main God. But the Supreme Personality means that this Godhead takes many personalities. God is one. There are not many gods. God is one, but he expands in many personalities. Okay, amongst these personalities that the God takes, Krishna is the supreme. That's what it means, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's not a name; it's a philosophical concept, and it's telling you, first of all, that God is one, the God multiplies himself, and amongst this multitude of personality, divine personality, Krishna is the fountainhead, is the main. So this is important to understand what Supreme Personality of God means. So this chapter begins with Krishna saying to Arjuna that he is going to tell him something very intimate, something very important. And actually, he says that this knowledge is not easy to get. For us, we just, we at Zoom is even free of charge. We can get a Zoom and we get knowledge, but this knowledge is being searched for by millions of great sages, and they didn't know what we are going to talk about. Because to get this knowledge, one has to be blessed, and you are all very much blessed. When I say you, of course, I include me. So we have been all very much blessed by having a knowledge which is not easy to understand by ourselves, and not very easy to get from a qualified source. Out of many thousands among men, says Krishna, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who achieve perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Of course, the verb to know doesn't mean only knowing philosophically, but means also realizing. So you may know who Krishna is, but if you are not realized, then your knowledge is quite imperfect. Now, Krishna says, I will declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So he's going to talk about the spiritual energy and the material energy, all in this chapter. Okay. First of all, that's is going to say how this material energy is formed. It's formed of eight elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these eight constitute my separated material energy. Separated, bhinna in Sanskrit, bhinna. Bhinna means not me, it's something external to me. It's like this table. It's like this bottle of water. It's not me. I have this. So that's why Krishna is calling the material energy my bhinna, separated material energies. This is very important because, again, the concept of separation between spirit and matter has been again told with force by Krishna. And so are we going today to study how the material world is formed? No, it's not. It would take time. I know that I often say this, but if we want to talk about, if you want me to explain an entire chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita in 1 hour, then you have to bear with me that I'm not going to say everything on everything. So the material energy is made of earth, which doesn't mean earth. Earth means a solid. Okay, water doesn't mean only water, it means liquid. And then fire, fire is heat. There's so much heat in our body, in our hands, in everything we do, there is heat. Then we have air, which means gases. The gases. Okay. Ether. What is ether? Ether is space, and also where the sound travels. Of course, in space, you cannot hear sound, but it's the same type of ether. It is called. Then the mind. The mind is a repository. Then there is intelligence, the capacity of discriminating, and then the false ego, which is the capacity of identification or identification. Okay, so this 8, which in the Bhagavatam, it adds another element, which is consciousness, but about consciousness deserves some time. Then Krishna says, okay, this is the material world. He's going to take back again the material. But then he said there is another energy. There is not just matter. As the scientists, they say that there is no spiritual world. How would they know that there is no spiritual world? How would they know? How would they know if they never saw it or they didn't see it? In other words, for a scientist, I understand a religious person who speaks out of faith. I believe in God, okay, but do you have any proof that God exists? No. Then why you say you believe in God? I don't know, I just believe it. Okay. Scientists, basically, they use the same thing of blind religious people. Man, they say there is no spiritual world, and you ask, so what is the proof that there is no spiritual world? And they say, well, I don't see it. Oh, come on. What do you want to see with these eyes? If it exists only what you see, then there is no planets, there is no stars, there is nothing, because you don't see them. You see in the sky some little dots. How do you know that it's a star and it's not something else? Okay, so accepting that something does not exist without having proof, this is not a scientific method. This is a blind religious method. We accept what we can prove. So Krishna says the superior energy comprises the living entities, comprises me, Krishna, and the living entities. So the living entities are exploiting the resources of this material inferior energy. So Krishna says, I am a spiritual entity, and you also a spiritual entity. He's saying it again. He's saying the same thing again. But the living entity, some living entity, not all the living entity, they come in this material world and they exploit this material world. Oh, I take food so I can eat, and eating I have some pleasure. Oh, I come and take a body so I can have some pleasure. So exploiting the living entity come in this world, exploiting this material inferior nature, inferior. So you're wasting your time. You are just exploiting. Why don't you try to exploit the superior energy? So all created beings have their source and these two natures, one in material and the other one is spiritual. And I am both the origin and the dissolution. So Krishna is saying, I exist. So there is God. There is God because it's not possible that there is not a God. This is the way I put it if I to explain the existence of God. Of course, books have been written. We can also write books. We are good in writing and taking much time to say a simple thing. But if we want to be logical and we look to this world, if we look to to us, our life, etc., it's impossible that there is not a God. It's like to say the house, nobody did it. There was some water, some concrete on the floor, and then somebody light up some dynamite and boom, and a house came. This is the scientific method. They want to explain something that is perfectly organized in a most disorganized way, which is chance. They want to say that everything that is perfect, the sun sets every day at the same time, not at the same time, of course, but basically you can predict, you can say at what time the sun will go down. It's mathematical, it's scientific. This is science. Science means the sun sets at the same time when it is every day. But if you want to explain such a mathematical perfection with the Trump casual that it came out, then this is not a religion. This, I don't know how to call it. This is the most unbelievable, unacceptable, allow me to use the word stupid thing I ever heard in my life. Because you cannot take something and explain it in a completely opposite manner. You cannot take something that has a reasoning with something unreasonable. There's something organized, the origin must be organized. This house, somebody did it. And this somebody must be intelligent. Why intelligent? Well, because this house isn't got some intelligence. You know, the windows are not in the roof. The windows are there because I can see outside. The door is not under the floor. The door is where it has to be so that I can open it and enter. So it got some intelligence. So this universe is so intelligent that the sun, the stars, and the planet, they go around. They don't go around as they like. They always do the same thing, you know. And so you cannot explain such a perfection with the most unbelievable theory that in comparison, the religions, it seems like a science, you know. I believe in God because I like to think that God exists. This is more logical than a scientist saying that the world comes from an explosion or the world. This is much, much better. At least, you know, there is some emotion. Of course, we use a different approach. But again, my criticism on science is that they have to say, I don't know. I don't know. And they should not hide their ignorance with big words, because people will believe them not because they say something logical, but just because they don't understand what they're saying. So they must be very intelligent. So intelligent people is always right. But this is not the case. You can hide the ignorance with a lot of big words that do not mean anything. So, so Krishna is saying God exists, first of all. There is a material world, and that's, we can see it. And then there is a spiritual world, we can also see. Who says that we cannot see the spiritual? It's the most obvious thing. Are we talking? So talking, this is spiritual. Are we living? Jiva, this is spiritual. You know, are we listening? Are we thinking? Are we moving? Are we doing? This is spiritual. Matter cannot do this. Matter is inert. Inert exists in English. Help me. Something that doesn't move. Inert. Okay. This table is matter. It doesn't move. It's not that if you put a small table, then one day I find a third table because they united and they did that. No, because they have no life. It's matter, it's inert, it's dead. Okay, so if we move, it's because there is something different from matter, that's spiritual. So we can see spirit, and just we have to recognize it. How? Since we cannot see it, we can detect its existence by the obvious symptoms. Matter cannot move. If something moves, it's not matter. So how you want to call? You don't like spirit? Okay, call it as you like. John, Jeff, Jack, as you like it. But you have to accept that it's something different. Matter and spirit are two different energies. And any intelligent person will understand that. So God exists, material energy and spiritual energies. All created beings they partake of these two natures. Spiritual, and then they act in the material world. So now Krishna is going to begin describing himself. And this is very important. We know who God is, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls, a strand on a thread. You see, the logic. What it means, pearls strung on a thread. Okay. If you have a necklace of pearls, these pearls are together because there is a thread. You take out a thread, they fall on the floor, and then there is no necklace anymore. So either you accept the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or nothing as a logic. Nothing is together. It's not a necklace. It's nothing. It's just pieces of things here and there. So unless we understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and understand who He is and understand what He does, etc., then nothing really makes sense. Okay. In the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om and the Vedic mantra, and the sound of either, and the ability in man. I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat and fire. I am the life of the leaves and the penance of the ascetic. Know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of Bharatas, Arjuna. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, and ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am, in one sense, everything, but I am independent. I'm not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. So Krishna is saying that He is the Supreme Person. So why is so important? Well, this is very important because we don't, there are some classes, there are different philosophers and different philosophers. And one philosopher saying that God is everything. Okay, everything is God. Everything. You are God. I am God. The mixture and the in Italian we call it a minestrone. Minestrone is when it's a type of preparation you put everything inside, you know, and then at the end it comes to something that can be eaten. They are called pantheistic. Pan in Greek means everything, and theo, of course, means God. Everything is God. Pantheism. Srila Prabhupada talks about pantheism several times in his books. We are not pantheistic. We are not. Because Krishna is saying here in the Bhagavad-Gita that I am the origin of everything. And not that I am that I am everything, but everything is not me, because everything comes from me. So he makes a distinction between himself and his creation and his natures. And this is also important to understand, so that we can understand better what the Mayavada philosophy is, that we are not going to discuss today. But this is very important, because all the great acharyas have spent a lot of time and energy discussing and debunking this philosophy. And we also had to become expert philosophers to debunk these ideas, wrong ideas. So pantheistic philosophy has been negated in these verses, and and also Mayavada philosophy. What Mayavada philosophy says in few words, Mayavada philosophy doesn't say that everything is sin, okay, but the spiritual aspect of everything is the supreme. Okay, so Mayavada and Advaita Vada, two different things. Okay, so Mayavadi says, pantheistic says everything material. You put them together, you do a big thing. But Mayavadi says, no, everything is spiritual. So the spiritual aspect of everything that exists, put together, they are the supreme. Advaita Vada is something different. We are not going to discuss it today. Another time. It will take some time. So Krishna says here, I am not that I represent the Supreme. Krishna says I. So what does that mean? It means that Krishna is saying that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is so powerful, because some people say that Krishna wasn't God. Krishna was an expression of God. But Krishna is say I. Aham. Aham is I. It's not saying the thing from which I come from. It's saying I. And Krishna wasn't someone to speak casually. I am the origin of everything. So Bhagavad-Gita has been spoken by the Supreme Personality of God himself. So now we go to discuss something about the ignorance of living souls. There is something called goodness, passion, and ignorance, sattva, rajas, and gunas. They are modes. Modes is like how to explain a mode. A mode is a particular characteristic of everything. There are persons who have modes. People who sleep a lot, they're not clean, they sleep a lot, etc. They cannot speak in a clean way, they are in goodness. Those who get angry and they want to make some lot of money, etc., they are in passion. And those who like philosophy and they are gentle and they can reason and they're not get angry, then they are in goodness. So, and things also, food in goodness, passion, and ignorance, colors in goodness and passion, and everything has characteristics. So if we know the science of guna, then we can improve our life in becoming more in sattva and less in rajas and ignorance. For instance, we know that cleanliness is sattvika. If we don't take a shower 1 or 2 hours a day, etc., then we are not in sattva, we are in passion or ignorance. Then if we are always angry and then we are not in goodness, so we are in ignorance, etc., etc. If we know the colors, white is in goodness, red is in passion, black is in ignorance. So then if we know this, we are not going to use red or black. If we want to be in passion, we want to be in goodness, and etc., etc., etc. For instance, the night is in ignorance, and sunset and sunrise are in passion, and when the sun is high in the sky, that in goodness, etc., etc., etc. So this material energy of mind, constituted by the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered to me can easily cross beyond it. And so the people are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind. Knowledge is stolen by illusion, partake of atheistic nature of demons. After, maybe you can do some question on these differences. they cannot accept Krishna. So we have a lot of devotees also, it takes tens of years. They never surrender to Krishna, life after life. Why? Because they have, in their nature, they have a weakness caused by atheistic nature, and they cannot surrender. So so we encourage people to do the step and surrender to Krishna. While there are 4 kinds of pious men who begin devotional service by those who are distressed, those who desire wealth, those who are inquisitive, and the one who is searching for knowledge of the absolute. These people can approach Krishna consciousness. But of all those, one who is in full knowledge, who is always engaged in pure devotional service, is the best. Again, the supremacy of devotional service. So let's do some resume of everything. So this lecture is about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We know that the Supreme Personality of God is a person, that is supreme, and that everything comes from him. It's not a big thing, a big mix of things, but he is a person. And those living souls which are weak, we had difficulties sometimes to understand or to surrender to Krishna because of nature. The nature that we have, that we have inherited from our past lives. I have seen devotees enter into the temple of Krishna, boom, they can't stay, they can't live in the temple. Why I see people going around for 40, 50 years and never surrender. Okay. So we had to purify these tendencies and become ready for the big jump into transcendence. And then we have hinted about the mode of nature that we had to understand so that we can improve our life. And then what else? I haven't prepared this. I'm just speaking by memory. So basically, there are so many other concepts, but this is basically what is the 7th chapter about. Okay, so we have quite some time for questions, and I hope that there is no one listening who doesn't do the question. Because I have questions, so you cannot not have questions. If Srila Prabhupada was here, I would have hundreds of questions. Okay, so before questions that they will come, I know that they will. I have a couple of announcements. The first announcement is that next Sunday there will be the preaching center here in San Antonio. Physically, I will be there. I've been invited, so we are going to talk about some Lord Chaitanya's pastimes or clashing with the Mayavadis. That's why I hinted about the Mayavadis I'm going to talk. Of course, the problem is the last time I also wanted to tell some story, but then there were new people. You cannot talk about, you can talk about pastimes if there is somebody who is the first time to the temple. Anyway, so let's see what is the situation. Otherwise, I have to start again. We are not this body. And the second is about the great library or encyclopedia, however you want to call it. There's no name yet. We have arrived at 4,000 270 entries. Okay, and when we arrive, 5,000, 6,000, maybe 10,000 in 1 month or so, I would like to give access to some of you, your church, so that you can criticize. And you know, because we need to hear from people. You go, you look, you know, yeah, this is this, maybe you can do that, what you think about something. If something is missing, it's never going to be perfect, because this is a lifetime project, maybe of many people, you know, it will never end, because our knowledge is so vast that we will never. But at least to give some, I want that if someone has any question about history and philosophy, at least they should have some information. There should not be any personality, any place, any pastime that you cannot find some answer in our library. That's my thing. Because as I said the last week, I was writing the Mahabharata, and I found myself in a predicament of what I'm going to do with this sage. I already explained his biography, but I did it 120 pages ago. Readers are not going to remember this sage, and I don't want to say it again. I have to write again the same thing that I already wrote. So, and then I said, okay, and then I should stop writing the Mahabharata, and I should put a glossary. So that any sage at any time click and you go read who is this, you know, and especially when you deal with such a huge work like the Mahabharata, the 100,000 verses. If you don't do this, then you don't go ahead, because you yourself don't remember if you have wrote or not. So then you have to go look and maybe 3 books, since there are 18 books. In the 4th book, you find a sage and you scratch your head. Did I already explain this or not? Then you have to take the 2nd book, the 3rd book. Did I write it here? Then that is impossible. So the solution is the library. You go in the library, online library, and you click and you see, okay, there's it. And it will improve. So in a few weeks, I will ask some of you if you want to get in there and be a critic. Okay, back in Cassandra.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for your lecture today. It was very wonderful. I really liked when you were pointing out the how spirituality is everything that's moving, like alive, like we're talking, we're hearing, we're, you know, birds are flying, things. I really like that example. So my question is, actually, it's not an example, that's the truth. But my question is how, then what is happening when I'm a spiritual being, but something inert, and probably I have to give this more thought, but I'm just going to ask you anyways, is when I'm placing something like inert, like Cassandra, you know, an identity, you know, and a destination to something spiritual. What is that? Yeah, I'm guessing, what is that doing? Because am I confusing matter to be spirit then, or because I'm identifying as Cassandra, but I'm seeing that I'm talking and I'm moving, which is spiritual. So I don't know if my question makes sense. But.
When you move, that movement is spiritual. It comes from the soul, because the body cannot move. The car doesn't move. I have my car outside here. I can see it. So it's not moving. Why it's not moving? Because I'm not there. When I enter into my car, the car moves. So the car had no movement. The car moves when the movement goes in, which is spiritual. So then, what is material life? When we say material life, which is actually a contradiction in terms, because life is never material. but we should say materialistic life. What is materialistic life? Materialistic life is to go outside and start polishing the car and polishing the car and polishing the car for hours and days, etc., dedicating all your life to your car. That's a materialistic life, and you forget to eat, to sleep, to live yourself. Okay, so when we project an attachment, we project what we are, what we want to be on something external to us. This is called materialistic life. And so spiritual life means I'm going to dedicate my life to me. Okay, I had to clean my car, of course, otherwise I cannot use it, obviously. I had to take care of my body, otherwise I can't function. But I'm not going to waste all my life on my body because it's going to finish, it's going to break down. Just we had to learn the secret of how much time our body needs. Just like we had to know how much time our car needs, so that I can give attention, but not too much, because I got more important things to do. Same thing with our body, how much time and energy, and also how much psychological, let's call it a psychological attention should I give to my body, how much attachment, how much emotional involvement should I put in everything that is physical, so that we don't waste time, and we don't waste energy, mental energy, because the moment we give too much attention to something material, then that is going to take away strength for spiritual understanding and spiritual practice. So that's very important difference to understand what is material and what is, because there is not only matter and spirit, there is also spiritualized matter. Like if I use my body, which is matter, and I am spirit, so then what should I do? Should I just suicide because the body is material? Then I shouldn't. No, there is a way to utilize matter for spiritual attainment, so that this body becomes spiritualized. Just like the deities. We see the deities. We don't see Krishna playing the flute because we don't have the eyes to see Krishna playing the flute, but we can see the deities. So the deities are matter or are spirits. It's matter because we can touch it, but it's spiritual because we get purified by it. So it's a spiritualized matter. Krishna accepted to enter into two material forms made of marble or whatever the deities are made. They enter through a ceremony that is explained and joined in the Vedas. If we follow this instruction, then our deities are not matter, are not statues anymore, and they become murti, they become deities. And we get purified because of that, of the ceremony that Krishna accepted to enter. So what about the food? It's material, so I shouldn't eat. Of course you have to eat, but food becomes spiritualized when you offer it to Krishna. And your sound of your mouth is material or spiritual is material, of course. But if you say Hare Krishna, it's spiritualized. So spirit, matter, and spiritualized matter. If we understand the concept of spiritualized matter, then become confused. Is this material? Is this spiritual? What should I do? Like your good husband week asked about his job. How I'm a devotee, so how can I do if I got a job? And spiritual is material, it's the same concept. If you go to do your job, so you and your family can go to the cinema and just enjoy life, that's material. But if you go to your job, to the work, to gain the money, to live decently, and then go to the temple and chant Hare Krishna, and etc. This is spiritualized matter, and you can advance spiritually if you do very well your duty as a mother or wife and husband and father, etc. You do your duty because you must. We must. Spiritualists are not people. Sometimes this is material. They give it out. This is not our philosophy. No, you have to do your duty just like Arjuna. Arjuna didn't want to fight, so you cannot say no. I don't want. I'm a spirit soul. I'm not a mother. So my dear son, I will give you up. This is exactly what Arjuna was doing. Arjuna wanted to renounce his son. He wanted to renounce his duty. And Krishna said, no, you do your duties in the best way. And Arjuna did it, did it very well. And it was spiritual. Why? Because it was spiritualized by the goal. The goal of your family is to raise a nice Krishna conscious kid, go to the temple, preaching, and I know that you went in Harinam, which made me ecstatic. So that just you two with a small child, etc., go to, this is wonderful, So, so there is no doubt that you can continue to do exactly what you are doing, and what you do is a spiritual life, it's not material life.
Thank you, Maharaj. Just one more question to add to that, if it's okay.
No.
If someone could argue that, then again, this goes back to the moving and the non-moving, the inert matter to spiritual. So, say people can use chemicals, combination of chemicals, and they can make something move. And how can we, and I mean, like it's becoming really intelligent, like technology and other things that. So how do we see that in a way that is still matter?
Well, there are two different movements. One is a conscious movement. That means that somebody decides to move. While another type of movement is a mechanic movement where nobody decides to move, that is mechanical, Then there is a big difference between the two, And someone may also argue, saying, wait a second, if you say that then you put something to make this thing moving. So there is always a person behind. So this objection would have some validity if there is no intervention by any living being, and there are a thing that nobody put, which is impossible because somebody had to put it in some point in time, put there. But let's say that for absurd, say that there are two things where nobody ever put it, they're just by who knows how. If they move by themselves, then the only possibility that this happens is that there is a soul inside, because matter cannot move. And again, I'm sorry to repeat the same concept, and even mechanical movement be started by a person, like AI. Now they are giving a lot of importance to artificial intelligence. But artificial intelligence, there are thousands of people working artificially. How can be artificial? There are thousands of people working on artificial. This is not artificial. That is just copying something that already exists, which is life. You just put it in a different way, but there is always the same person behind. So an intelligence, where did intelligence come from? You say that artificial intelligence is the intelligence. Where it comes from? Only a non-intelligent person can say that intelligence comes from nothing. This is not intelligent. This is very foolish. You know, intelligence means an intelligent person that put intelligence inside this mechanism, and becomes it becomes artificial. It's not artificial. It's mechanic. It's like a car. A car, you go inside, there is a mechanism, you push, and then the car goes. It's the same thing. That's a little more sophisticated, but artificial intelligence is like a car, just not made of iron. It's made of software. It's made of whatever it's made of. So I think that we have to learn how to recognize the cheating. I remember when I was very young, there was this case of the scientist says we created life in laboratory because they took a sheep and the sheep was born in laboratory. Okay, and everybody, now religions, what they're going to say? No, Christian, the science, they created life. We don't need God because science, they created life. Fools. They took the internal apparatus, they put it there, and then they did the same thing that nature does, just the scientists did it. They didn't create. When you talk about creation, creation means for nothing. And then we can discuss. But if you take everything that nature has arranged, just, I have not the word, the English word to describe the word they took. But they took a sheep, they took from inside this animal, they took everything necessary to create, for a procreation. They didn't create. Again, creation is from nothing. They didn't create a sheep. They built it. And they built it because they knew how to do it. And how do they know? Because it's already happened. Krishna is doing it. And they watched how nature is doing this thing, they replicated. They're not creation. There is no creation, only God can create, Krishna can create. This is what it says in the beginning of Bhagavad-Gita. It says, he is the origin of everything that exists.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Haribo. Bhakti Rosaline, Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Haribo.
I'm so happy to be here again. And I've had a question on my mind for a while, and I find an opportunity here in this chapter to ask it, because in text 16, we read, "O best among the Bharatas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute." Now, this makes me realize, first of all, I realize how fortunate I am in this birth to have access to this knowledge. But I also realize that I tend to be more attracted to it when I'm in some kind of distress, or, this search for knowledge seems to be somehow related to distress in the life. And I think to myself, well, I have such a fortunate life now. What would happen if I were to be born into an even more fortunate circumstance? Would I be able to find the absolute? Would I be able to even want to perform devotional service if my next life I were even more fortunate? And how would we ever break this cycle? Thank you.
Yeah, this is very intelligent. And actually, even in the Vedas, there are no one verse, but several verses where it is said that one should not decide to go to the upper planets. You know, like everyone, especially in India, that they have some knowledge of Vedic culture. They want to go to the moon, they want to go to the sun, because they know that there is a wonderful life, that there are beautiful people, and there are apsaras and Gandharva that can enjoy life. But as you say, if I go there and enjoy life, where am I going to find the strength to give all this up to do spiritual life? Because even the upper planets, that's temporary. It's not eternal. You're going to be in a Chandra's planet for millions of years, but then it will finish. You're not going to enjoy it because you know that you're watching your watch and say, this is going to finish. This is how an intelligent person thinks. This is going to finish. I cannot enjoy it. It's like, I will give you a beautiful house, but right on Puerto Rican beach. So it just, you know that a hurricane will come. You know that. Maybe not today. Maybe maybe next year. But you know that your house will be destroyed. You know that. So how can you enjoy it? It's better to have a smaller house, maybe to Ayuya, so where the hurricane doesn't arrive, more or less, so that you can actually be satisfied with. So distress is actually one of the motor, the first motivation for every one of us to become devotees. Yes, of course, there are a lot of devotees that I also know that they want knowledge, and they immediately want to read, and immediately they do a lot of questions. And you see them, you see this kind of people, okay? But really, if you enjoy life, it's very difficult to go back again in a place where they tell you give up, you know, material life, because it's temporary. You don't want to listen to it. You don't even want to listen because it disturbs you. Why? Because, okay, it's temporary, but let me enjoy it. Okay, I will 1 year, 2 years, but don't bother me. Give me these 2 years, and then I'll come back. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, friends, they were saying to Prahlad, they will say, "But we are kids. You tell us to chant Hare Krishna and to do all these things, you know, but let us enjoy life while we are." And Prahlad says, "No, you don't. You start now, because now you are kids. After you have to maintain your family, and after you have the pain here, and after you are very old, and after your mind is blown up, all these stupid things that you have thought and said and done all your life, intoxication and everything. Then the time is now. It's not tomorrow." So suffering works as one push, a very powerful push actually, to motivate us. And Krishna is very gentle with us, and they give us a lot of, at least to the devotees who are lucky, he gives a lot of problems to surrender, to say, okay, that's it, you know, I don't want to see anything material because this is too much. So I think that those devotees who have some distress, in one sense, they are lucky. But at the same time, also Bhagavad-Gita said there are planets where the distress is too much. If you suffer too much, then your mind becomes clouded. You cannot think because you are so angry, you're suffering, it's too much, okay? So it has to be balanced. This planet, the Earth planet, is more or less balanced. There is some enjoyment and some distress, more or less, you know. Sometimes you distress, but it's not like in other planets, or like the hellish planets. You know, how are you going to think Krishna if there are somebody, you know, stabbing you continuously the whole of your life, etc. Or if you go to the upper planets, when you see these such beautiful ladies or beautiful, you know, men going around and chanting and singing and everything, you don't have to work, there is nothing contrary. How are you going to think of Krishna? It is too much, it's too difficult. So to conclude this, I think your thought is nicely organized. You know, yes, it's good to have some distress, not too much, you know, and then take shelter of Krishna and the motivation, the grossly material, because it's grossly material. Let's say, I come to you not because I love you, but because I need you. This is not good. I don't think that any man or woman would like to hear from the person loved, okay, I came back to you because I need, you know, because I suffer, not because I don't care about you, but because I suffer. This is basically what the devotee, who is the devotee just because he was is saying to Krishna, you know, I don't care about you, I appear just because I'm suffering. So this, but he knows that this is what it is. This is the reality. And he doesn't care. And he knows that during time, by practicing very highly motivated, materially motivated devotional service, you're going to get cured. You're going to get purified. And the original motivation, I came here because I was suffering, then you will get purified. And you will start to like it, to actually like it. And you begin to go there or to practice because you like it and not because you are suffering, you know. And then purification will become more and more. At the end, you start actually loving Krishna. And you remember the suffering, you remember everything. You said, what a fool I was. Krishna is so beautiful. And I will go to Krishna only because I love him and not because of some personal motivation. But we cannot wait for that to start being a devotee. Like many devotees say, oh, I'm not a devotee because I'm too much materially attachment. So Krishna does it's not real. You know, I should. Well, if you don't start, you'll never be. Because this is how you get purified. And not I will be a devotee like Prahlad Maharaj friends were saying, you know, when we grow up, we will be devotees. No, it doesn't work like this. So I will be a devotee when I will actually feel to be a devotee. No, it doesn't work that way. You go, you start practicing, and one day you'll be a devotee. Hari Bol. Okay, so we have some 10 minutes since questions are not raining from the sky. And I will ask Andy Sunday where he's at with the Mahabharata. Andy is working on the Mahabharata, I know that, in English. And there are many editions of the Mahabharata, but I guarantee you that this is the not because I wrote it. I didn't write it. You know, this is the real Mahabharata. The only thing I did is not to invent anything. I just put the story exactly as it is. Maybe the philosophical part, I made it simpler. But knowing that this is exactly as it is. Bhanti Sandra.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I wanted to just speak again about the Creator and how we can't really create anything. So can you talk about how we can't really create even the causes? Like Krishna says, I'm the cause of all causes. So how does that create the creation and the cause kind of connect or come together?
Well, you can build up, you know. The term creation means from nothing. You cannot do that. You can take what it is in the creation and use that to do something new. And then you become the cause of something. You take a seed, you put it in the earth in your garden, and then the tree come up. You cannot say that you created the tree, but you are a cause. You caused the seed to be in your garden, and you took care. And you took care of the tree so that it grew up. You are the cause, but the cause of who or what is the cause of the cause of the cause, or the cause of the cause of the cause. Ultimately, who created the seed from nothing? There is only one person. There are not two. You know, because cannot be two, simply because it's against any normal logic. Cannot be two, because, well, this is real pure philosophy. It's abstract philosophy. But the point is that when you have two creators, you cannot have a single thing, because you have two creations from two different people, but two people cannot do one thing. So if there is one creation, which is this universe, so the creator must be one. Otherwise, the creators are two. That means that one creator say, okay, the sun burns, and the other say, no, I don't like it. The sun, they shouldn't burn. It should be something different. The moon should be there, should be somewhere else. And then you really cannot have one creation and the two creators. So because the creator has to be independent, even from the other creator. So the original creator must be one, because there is one logic, because there is one law, because there is one rule, because everything refers to one, and Krishna is the one.
So if there's one creation, there's one cause.
There is one original cause. The origin is one. Then, from the original cause, it comes millions and billions and trillions of secondary causes, of tertiary causes, of fourth level, or fifth level, or thousandth level of cause. But the cause, of the cause must be one.
And it works the same way if you go from the original cause all the way to the garden, the seed in the garden, or you go from the seed of the garden all the way to the original cause. It works either way.
The point is that you can be a secondary cause of a cause of a cause of a cause, being caused by somebody, like that. But the original cause cannot be two. It's always one.
Okay.
This is very, very simple. If you take a pen and something, you try to when I was a very young devotee, since I was a mathematician, I love math. That was my favorite. I had the highest score in math. So then I had this thing that it is possible to write philosophy numbers. Okay, so it was just a game of a kid. I was 19, but I wrote a couple of pages in numbers explaining philosophy. It is possible because it's logic. Our philosophy is logical, and so if you take anything, any any in the world, any except no, how you say that in English? Any I can't find the word. Anyway, at the end, there is one. The number is one.
Like any absolute?
Any maybe Sunday I will tell you. Any mathematical or geometrical problem, all these kind of things, and you reduce it, at the end it's always one. There is no number that doesn't contain a one, okay? And not necessarily all the numbers are inside the one, but from one it comes all the numbers. So who is the number one? You cannot have 1 and 2 because there are numbers that you cannot multiply by 2. You know, 7 you cannot be multiplied by, but you can multiply 1 by 7. You arrive to 7, but from 2, how do you arrive to 7? Or how you arrive to 11? How do you arrive to 13 or 17 or 21? You cannot do that. And even the number 3, there are numbers you cannot be divided by numbers until you arrive at 3. There are numbers, only 1 is the only number. The divided divine, you arrive to 1. So there is no logic, which is that is logical, unless we want to, just like I was talking to my son some time ago, and I was telling him, if you want to believe to something because you like it, okay, that's one thing. You can believe anything you want, but you cannot trying to cheat me and say that it's not logical, it's not scientifically proved, okay? And so logic must be there, even in a philosophy so mystical, so incredible. There are so many things being said that this is far out, that you cannot explain it, you cannot understand it. But at the end, at the base of everything, there is an absolute logic. And the logic is something that we have to uphold, that we have to understand, so that we can arrive to accept temporary, even things that are unacceptable at the present moment. So one is Krishna.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe we have time for last questions, and then we wrap it up. And again, we'll see at the center this Sunday and next Thursday here at the same time. If there is any last question, otherwise we just conclude here. Okay, so thank you very much and see you soon. Haribol, all glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Haribol.
Haribol, Haribol.